I'm not backing down just because some thugs think they can intimidate me. The intensity of her eyes met his, a battlefield for their unresolved emotions. Alaric's breath caught. And what's the plan? To wave a flag and charge at them with your what? Your charm? Your stubbornness? This isn't a fairy tale. He ran a hand through his thick black hair, frustration mingling with admiration at her fierce resolve. Fairy tale? Maybe not, but I'm not just some damsel waiting for the night to rescue me. Amara stepped forward, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. I can handle myself. Every hero needs a sidekick, he replied, the corner of his mouth twitching into a smirk, trying to lighten the tension. But I guess you're not interested in a co-star. Amara shot him a glare, but the spark of humor flickered between them. They were caught in a dance, the weight of impending crisis pushing them close, with laughter hovering just beneath the surface. If I wanted sarcasm, I'd go to my sister. At least then I'd know what I'm getting into. Tache, he said, his eyes softening ever so slightly, and for a moment, the world beyond them faded, leaving only the two of them, and the unspoken tension that hung between their lips like the ripe grapes begging for harvest. Suddenly, the moment fractured. Alaric turned abruptly, pacing away to the far edge of the barrel, his broad shoulders tense. You have no idea what it's like to fight on the edge, Amara. Every choice, every move can end you, and here you are. Just, I don't want you to get hurt. The vulnerability in his voice struck her, and the corners of her mind softened. Knowing the scar from the past, Alaric had carried his share of burdens, secrets that crushed under their weight. Alaric. Her voice broke, taking a soft step toward him. I know what I'm asking you to risk, but I'm not afraid of the fight. I want you by my side because I care. He turned, closing the distance so they were mere inches apart, breaths mingling in the humid evening air. Care is volatile in times like these. Then let's ignite it, she replied, searching his gaze. In that moment, vulnerability bared like the stems of the vines around them, and inch by inch, the walls between them began to crack. Their hands brushed, an accidental touch that reverberated with intention. She felt the warmth of his skin, like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. The tension swelled, the battle between fear and desire coiling tighter around them. Care enough to hold on? Alaric whispered, leaning closer until the world around them dimmed and the weight of everything melted away, fading to the background. With a swift movement, he closed the distance, capturing her lips in a kiss that spoke of urgency rather than inhibition. It was a merging of fire and honey, a desperate affirmation of what was beginning between them. Time slowed, and though the vineyard surrounding them was full of life, they existed in an intimate sanctuary, lost in this rush to conquer more than just the shadows lurking in the corners of their complex lives. And somewhere deep inside, they both knew that facing the darkness could only make the light shine that much brighter. Scene 32, Undercover Moves. Amara Sorensen stood in the dim glow of the vineyard's rustic farmhouse kitchen, the aroma of roasting garlic wafting in the air. Rain pattered against the window panes, its sound a gentle reprieve from the storm brewing inside her. She chopped herbs with a practiced precision, mulling over their next move against the vicious crime syndicate threatening her family's legacy. The knife sliced through the basil, like her thoughts sliced through the heaviness of the moment. She hadn't signed up for this tangled web of deceit. Alaric Ughandu leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his brow arched in slight amusement. You know, if you keep that up, we might end up with a 5-star dish amid a criminal conspiracy. His deep voice had a teasing edge, but the shadow that flickered across his face spoke of their precarious situation. Amara set the knife down, defending herself with every ounce of fierceness she could muster. It's hard to concentrate on an undercover scheme when I'm also trying not to set the kitchen on fire. Fine, I'll take the spy work while you handle dinner. Alaric stepped closer, the heat in the room intensifying, not just from the oven. You can't look the part if you're not feeling it. A strong kitchen general needs their weapons, after all. Are you genuinely trying to make spy-themed cooking inspirational? I thought we were planning for our lives here, not auditioning for a cooking show. She met his gaze fiercely, but beneath her bravado, there was the flicker of something more profound, fear mingled with admiration. Alaric straightened, his expression darkening as thunder rumbled beyond the window. I just want to know we're a team in this. Right now, it feels like a contest of wills, and I'm not sure we can afford that. Layered tension filled the kitchen, thick as the humidity in the air. Amara inhaled deeply, closing her eyes for a moment to calm the storm within her. A trick she learned when her mother's disapproval had thrummed through their home like an inevitable echo. Look, I appreciate your concern, but trust isn't given, it's earned. You of all people should understand that. Her voice wavered slightly, revealing more vulnerability than she intended. Alaric seethed with tension, each muscle straining against the lingering storm. What I understand is that if we hold back now, if we let our pasts dictate our future, then we're already lost. I won't be too afraid to step into the fire with you. A flicker of passion ignited between them, and Amara took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. You don't get to decide that for me. This is my family we're fighting for, and I won't let anyone. Not even me? Alaric's voice was a hushed challenge, each word laden with meaning as his eyes bore into hers. You want me to be there for you when it suits you, but I can't support you if you keep pushing me away. What do you want me to do? Hold hands and skip through danger together? She shot back, exasperation bubbling beneath her controlled exterior. You're not going to protect me from everything, Alaric. That's not how this works. But there it was, raw and real between them, the undeniable pull of tension infused with their unspoken desires. Alaric advanced, his presence enveloping her, reducing the space between them to nothing. I want you to understand that I may not have all the answers, but I'm not backing down. I'll fight for you, Amara. Just, please, don't push me away. The sincerity in his eyes pierced through her defenses. The storm outside raged on in beautiful chaos, much like the tempest of feelings swirling between them. She trembled slightly, grappling with a sudden surge of something akin to longing. What if we fail? What if? If we fail, we try again. But if we give up before we begin, that's the only guarantee of failure. He stepped closer, a barrier obliterated. Trust me, trust us. In that moment, the invitation hung between them, crackling like electricity, a promise wrapped in urgency. As their breaths mingled, Alaric's hand lightly brushed against hers. The world fell away, rainfall pattering softly against the glass, the chaos of their lives muted. Amara held his gaze, the tumult within her easing slightly as warmth seeped into the core of her. Then let's not just cook up plans, she said with a half smile. Let's burn down the house if we have to, right? Now you're speaking my language, Alaric replied, a glint of relief softening his features. We'll be the most unpredictable duo this town has ever seen. With that shared resolve, the storm raging outside felt less daunting, and together they began cooking up more than just a plan. Perhaps in the heat of the kitchen, they'd find their way through the shadows looming ahead. Scene 33. Rediscovering boundaries. Amara stood on the balcony of her vineyard estate, the sun setting in a cascade of amber and gold, illuminating the verdant expanse below. The crisp air carried the earthy scent of ripened grapes, evoking a fleeting memory of her childhood, those sunlit afternoons spent laughing with her mother amidst the vines. A bittersweet knot twisted in her gut as her reflection stared back at her from the polished railing. Today marked a new chapter, one devoid of the toxic bonds that had tangled her life for too long. With a sigh, she turned back inside and glanced at the stack of freshly printed papers on the kitchen counter. Her new rules, meticulously crafted yet liberating, lay before her, a guide to establishing boundaries not just at work but in every corner of her life. One rule stood out: no toxic relationships, period. It felt like a declaration, a battle cry against the ghosts of her past. As she shuffled through the pages, Alaric stepped into the room, his presence as undeniable as the aroma of strong coffee that wafted behind him. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, an amused smile playing on his lips. What's all this? A manifesto to take over the world? His dark eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. More like a guidebook for survival, Amara responded, a tinge of sarcasm creeping into her voice. You'd be surprised how often I found myself drowning, trying to please the wrong people. Sounds efficient, he quipped, stepping closer, his gaze warm yet demanding of attention. No time like the present to cut them loose. There was an intensity to him that was both exhilarating and intimidating. She could feel the gravity of his presence drawing her in. Easier said than done, she muttered, not bothering to hide her skepticism. When you've always been the one to bend, snapping back feels impossible. Impossible? Is that why you're here? Alaric leaned against the counter, arms still crossed, but with an air of seriousness replacing the previous lightness. To rethink your life while dodging decisions? That's just procrastination dressed up as self-help. Funny, coming from a man who's an expert at running away from his own secrets, Amara shot back, a mischievous smirk touching her lips. Touché, he acknowledged, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. But trust me, I know a thing or two about needing to face what haunts you. The mood shifted as the weight of unspoken truths thickened in the air between them. Alaric's expression softened, his wit momentarily sidelined by sincerity. Boundaries mean nothing if you don't enforce them. If you want to prevent what happened in the past from recurring, you need to be clear. I'm trying, Amara whispered, her facade faltering. There it was again, that flash of vulnerability radiating from Alaric she had never expected to see. Trying isn't enough, he urged, stepping closer until they were mere inches apart. The heat between them crackled, palpable even through the wall of tension. You need to draw the line yourself, Amara. No one else can do it for you. I know, she replied, almost breathless as she felt his nearness envelop her like a warm, enveloping wave. But what if I lose everything again? What if I end up with nothing? Then we start from scratch, he replied, inching closer, eyes locked onto hers, because you are worth the fight. At that moment, the space between them felt charged, a magnetic field that could spark a fire or set them ablaze. Her heart raced as emotional shields wavered. You're sure about that? I'm not exactly easy to handle. Trust me, Alaric said, his voice low and steady. I like a challenge. Their breaths mingled, a fine line drawn between the possibility of connection and the haunting shadows of their pasts. Somewhere in the allure of their entwined fates, the promise of healing beckoned, a tentative bridge over the swamp of fear. Finally breaking the spell, Amara smiled, feeling bold for the first time in memory. Then let's make this work, rules and all. But don't think I'll go easy on you. Wouldn't dream of it, he replied, returning her smile with a flicker of devilry in his eye. Besides, I thrive when the stakes are high. As laughter spilled between them, lightness clearing the air, Amara realized that for the first time, she was not only rediscovering boundaries, but forging a new, bold path in both her life and her heart, one that included the enigmatic man before her. 34. Unveiling tensions. Amara leaned heavily against the cool stone wall of her vineyard cellar, the subtle aroma of oak barrels enveloping her as she caught her breath. The distant rumble of thunder matched the tension simmering between them. Alaric stood a few feet away, his dark eyes filled with a storm of their own. You put yourself in danger back there, he said, his voice low, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unasked questions. Danger? Amara shot back, lifting her chin defiantly. You mean the danger I was already in? It's not like you were waiting there with rescue ribbons on. She pushed herself off the wall, her emotions flaring up anew, matched by the flickering candlelight that barely illuminated the room. Alaric's brow furrowed, frustration clawing at the edges of his calm facade. I could have handled it. Handled it? She interrupted, her voice rising. What does that even mean? That I should sit quietly, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for you to come save me from my own mess? Newsflash, I didn't ask for your help. His silence echoed in the small space, thick with unspoken words. The only sound was the distant drip of wine seeping from one of the barrels. It painted a tense backdrop, a thread of shared history binding them tighter with each moment. What kind of partner doesn't? He started, then cut off. His hands balled into fists at his sides, the muscle in his jaw jumping. Forget it. You have a right to do things your way. I do, she insisted, her voice wavering slightly. But you think because you are, she gestured toward him, her frustration giving way to a deeper vulnerability, that you get to decide what I can or can't handle. Is that really how you see me? Like I'm some knight in shining armor? Alaric leaned closer, the palpable tension radiating off him in waves. Something like that. She grinned, trying to diffuse the tension with humor. Just less armor and more brooding. He chuckled, though it was laced with irritation. You make it sound like a choice, Amara. I'd give anything to walk away from this mess. What mess? She countered, her eyes narrowing. The mess we both are in? The lives we've led? Or is it the one your presence stirs up inside of me? His gaze bore into her, challenging. I'm not the one you have to face, am I? The silence that followed filled the air with unspoken emotions. Right. She bit her lip, considering her response. But you're not the only one who has secrets. Alaric stepped closer, the gap between them shrinking. We all have secrets, but not all secrets threaten to destroy us. Yours could ruin everything you've built. You don't think I know that? Amara's voice trembled as a crack of lightning illuminated her face. But I refuse to live in fear of what could happen. I want to fight for this place, for what it stands for. Fighting doesn't always lead to victory. The softness in his tone pierced through her defenses, disarming her. But it's better than cowering in the shadows, she replied, realizing how close they stood. The heat between them buzzed in the air, potent and tangible. You of all people should understand that. I do. But the shadows, his voice dropped to a murmur, the weight of his past hanging like a cloud. They can swallow you whole. His gaze searched hers, searching for something deeper. Maybe they can, but I'm not like you. The challenge sparked in her voice, and she stepped even closer. I won't let them. Their breaths mingled, and unintentional unity forged between them. Alaric's expression softened, vulnerability creeping into his guarded demeanor. You really want this, don't you? I do. Her heart raced, the honesty of it spilling from her. But I also want you. The admission lingered in the air, stirring the space with an undeniable intimacy. Alaric reached out, brushing his fingertips against a stray lock of hair, tucking it behind her ear. The touch sent shivers down her spine. I could ruin you, Amara, he said, his voice just above a whisper, the tension electric. Promise? She smirked, teasing in an effort to mask the gravity of his words, but the challenge hung unrepentantly in the room. With determined patience, he leaned forward further, his eyes dark with unconfessed longing. Just know that I won't let anyone hurt you. Not even yourself? She murmured, her heart pounding wildly. The intimacy of the moment pulsed with unspoken agreements and shared sorrows. Alaric studied her, his gaze as intense as a summer storm, the tension crackling. No, not even me. Time froze in that charged silence, the world around them fading away, leaving just the two of them, entangled in vulnerability, possibilities, and undeniable attraction. Scene 35, A Heart Divided. The late afternoon sun poured through the windows of Amara Sorensen's vineyard office, casting long shadows that danced gingerly across the wooden table, littered with blueprints and tasting notes. Outside, the golden vines beckoned under the blush of ripening grapes, a serene picture of promise and hard work. Amara stood over the table, pen in hand, furrowing her brow as she traced the outlines of a new layout for the vineyard's visitor center. Yet the designs blurred, her eyes were lost in thought, far from the parchment. Need a hand? Alaric Ughandu leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a teasing grin softening his otherwise intense features. His presence lit up the room, a calming storm in the midst of her turmoil. Amara looked up, caught off guard by the warmth in his gaze. It's just, family expectations. The event next week should be a celebration of success, but all my mother sees is opportunity for expansion. She ripped her gaze away and returned to the plans, uneasy tension knotting in her stomach. Alaric stepped forward, closing the distance between them, the floorboards creaking gently under his weight. If you're not careful, they'll have you believing that whatever they envision is what you're meant to chase. She glanced up, surprised. And what is that supposed to mean? The world doesn't revolve around what others want, Amara. What about what you want? His voice was low, firm. Amara dropped the pen with a huff. This isn't about me wanting, Alaric. I've spent years building this vineyard to prove to them that I can manage something substantial. And now, she trailed off, the weight of unspoken fears hanging in the air. You're terrified of failing? Failing to prove something to them? He stepped in closer, the air thickening around them. What if you only need to prove something to yourself? Amara's heart raced, his nearness igniting a blend of frustration and warmth. It's not that simple. He brushed a stray lock of hair behind her, a simple, tender gesture that made her gasp lightly. Life rarely is. His dark eyes flickered with intensity. Tell me why you don't let the world see you. Amara challenged, refusing to back down. She crossed her arms defiantly, the psychological game of their dynamics swirling dangerously around them. His expression shifted, an unexpected flicker of vulnerability breaking through his guarded demeanor. Because I was there when the bottom fell out for you, Amara, I saw how the world shattered your family. I can't just be a piece of your tragedy. Her breath hitched. The admission sank deep within her, stitching painful threads through an already complicated tapestry of emotions. She hesitated, feeling the familiar swell of grief and rage. You think I blame you? That you played a part in my mother's death? It was bigger than any of us. I know that in my head, but this, he gestured between them, this tension, it keeps me up at night, wondering what could have been if I just acted differently, if I hadn't sat on the sidelines. His fingers brushed against her forearm, sending an unexpected surge through her. Amara found herself inching closer, the air between them charged, every unspoken word crackling like static. You're not the only one who feels trapped by the past, she confessed quietly, a rare window into her vulnerability opening wider. Then let's break free together, he murmured, his breath warm against her skin as he leaned closer. In that moment, the playful banter faded into a throbbing silence, filled with electric anticipation. She could feel the wall of their emotional defenses crumbling as he lowered his face towards hers. Alaric. The warning hung between them, yet the weight of her own longing kept her rooted in place. His lips met hers with a mixture of urgency and tenderness, igniting a warmth that cascaded through her, banishing the shadows of familial expectation. The kiss deepened, a slow suffusion of trust and desire that unfolded delicately yet powerfully like the vines outside, resilient against all odds. As the kiss lingered, Amara felt the anchored weight of her world lifting, replaced instead by a reckless abandon. But just as she felt the fragments of herself begin to intertwine with him, reality tugged at her like an insistent vine, reminding her of the paths they still had to tread. She pulled back slightly, breathless. I can't let this be our only connection, she whispered, the enormity of her fears flooding back in. Then let's make sure it's not, he replied softly, their foreheads almost touching, an intimate promise hanging in the air, filled with uncharted potential. In an instant, Amara knew that while she could not shake the weight of her family's expectations, she had begun to embrace something greater, an unyielding bond forged against the tide of expectations. Together, then? She asked, searching his eyes for assurance. Together, he echoed, his voice a soothing anchor in the swell of uncertainty. Scene 36. The final showdown. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the vineyard, enhancing the beauty of the lush rows of grapes that cradled Amara Sorensen's dreams. She stood amidst the vines, sorting through the paperwork that had consumed her life, the weight of her worries hanging like heavy dew on the leaves. Why do I keep coming back to this? She muttered, her hands skimming over the countless stacks of documents. Unpaid invoices, safety violations, and threats from the syndicate loomed like a dark cloud overhead. Each page was a reminder of the precariousness of her world, reminding her of the imminent danger edging closer. Amara felt the reassuring presence of Alaric Ughandu beside her, his tall frame silhouetted against the dying light. You'll always come back to this because it's your home, Amara, he said, leaning casually against a wooden post, arms crossed, but his eyes were sharp, watching the horizon as if danger lurked behind every vine. Tilting her head, she met his gaze. Do you always have to be so profound? She quipped, attempting to mask her anxiety with humor, yet the nervous tension in her voice betrayed her. Only when the stakes are high, he replied, a wry smile playing on his lips. His dark eyes softened for an instant, betraying an unexpected vulnerability that pulled at her heart. For someone dealing with a crime syndicate, I'd expect you to be more dramatic, she said, her own facade cracking, revealing glimmers of their shared fears. He chuckled, the sound low and honeyed, briefly illuminating the shadows that constantly clung to him. Believe it or not, I'm quite the gentleman at heart. I even hold doors open for people. He gestured mockingly to the vineyard gate, then quickly his tone shifted, transforming into intensity. But if it's a choice between being dramatic or being practical against the syndicate, I'll pick practical any day. You do know practical could involve punching someone, right? She replied, the corner of her mouth lifting in a teasing grin. Sweetheart, that's my specialty, he said with a wink, the tension easing slightly, but the underlying danger still hummed like static in the air. Just then, a sharp noise echoed from the neighboring row of vines. Did you hear that? Amara whispered, her smile fading, her heart racing. The atmosphere shifted, plunging back into seriousness as her instincts kicked in. Stay here. Alaric bent low, creeping toward the source of the sound. She glanced around the vineyard, every whisper of the wind sending shivers down her spine. Wait! Amara felt a sudden rush of urgency. She wasn't about to hide when danger could be coming for them. I can help. Help? Alaric shot her a look, half amused, half exasperated. Your help is arguing with an invoice. Yes, well, I also know how to run a vineyard and how to take risks, she shot back, determination flaring within her. I'm not some damsel who needs saving, Alaric. Not a damsel, he conceded, crossing his arms again. Just someone who has a knack for getting into trouble. Let me handle this. Let me handle this, she mimicked, rolling her eyes. That's all men say. I'll have you know I survived my mother's pettiness, and I'm not about to let a gang of thugs ruin my life either. Suddenly, a shadowy figure burst from behind the grapevines like a ghost. Alaric reacted immediately, stepping in front of her, arms wide, protective yet ready for action. Who are you? He demanded, his voice gravely and commanding, a sound that sent shivers down Amara's spine. As tension hung in the air, Amara's heart raced, echoing her determination. Whoever they are, they're not taking my vineyard, she whispered fiercely, raising her chin. Alaric turned slightly towards her, his expression softening, a flicker of admiration passing between them. We'll face this together, but I need you to trust me, Amara. Their eyes locked, an understanding woven inside the chaos that surrounded them. She nodded, feeling the gravity of his promise, but also the connection pulsing between them, anchoring her amidst the storm. Then a voice rang out from the shadows, dark and chilling. You should have left well enough alone, Sorensen. In that moment, as the figure stepped into the fading light, Amara could feel both fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. The battle was here, and they were about to fight not just for survival, but for a future worth embracing. Guess it's time for a dramatic exit, Alaric whispered, smirking at her. Amara's heart pounded for reasons beyond fear. Lead the way. Scene 37, taking back her legacy. The evening sun dipped low over the vineyard, casting the landscape in hues of burnished gold and soft amber. The air felt electric, charged with both the promise of a new beginning and the weight of lingering sorrow. Amara Sorensen stood resolute at the edge of her ancestral property, a place haunted by shadows of the past, yet brimming with the potential of her legacy. The scent of earth mingled with the sweet fragrance of blooming vines, a juxtaposition that mirrored her turmoil. Alaric Ughandu approached from behind, his presence like an unspoken promise. The warmth of his body drew her attention, breaking her fixation on the rows of sun-kissed grapes glimmering in the fading light. Protected and guarded, yet fiercely protective, Alaric had become both a sanctuary and a storm in her chaotic world. Amara, he said, his voice low and steady as a breeze rustling through the leaves. You don't have to do this alone. She turned to him, her heart racing as she felt the weight of his gaze. And let them take everything my mother worked for? I refuse to let fear dictate my future. Her voice held an edge, betrayal alighting her fierce spirit. A resilient spirit, he remarked, a hint of admiration sparking in his dark eyes. But there are times when resilience isn't enough. Sometimes you need. I need to take charge of my life in this vineyard, Amara interrupted, the intensity igniting between them. I'm done running, Alaric. I won't back down anymore. The tension crackled in the space between them, charged with an urgency that made her pulse quicken. Alaric stepped closer, his features softened by the golden light, yet his expression was serious, almost feral in its focus. And what if the dangers come knocking again? You cannot always fight alone. No, but I have you, she replied, surprising herself with the sincerity in her tone. Somehow, admitting that made her feel both stronger and more vulnerable. You know the truth. You've seen the darkness that lives in this world. He hesitated, his attention wavering as memories flickered behind his stoic facade. "You don't know what I've seen, Amara, what I've lost. Neither do you know what I've endured," she insisted, brushing away the sting of past wounds. "But I'm done letting others define my worth. I should reclaim my heritage, my family's legacy. It's time." And just like that, the air thickened with something deeper, as if the vineyard itself held its breath, urging them to bridge the chasm that had divided them. Alaric's expression shifted, shadowed by a blend of admiration and concern. "Together, then?" "Together," she affirmed, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest as the uncertainty dissipated, leaving only the raw truth of their connection. In that moment, overcoming the fear of vulnerability felt intoxicating, like the ripe fruit surrounding them. Amara reached for Alaric's hand, the simple touch igniting a wave of warmth that spread through her. It was grounding and thrilling all at once. "You," she swallowed, her heart racing, "you belong here with me." His smile shifted from guarded to something softer, something secret. "And you belong to this land, both of our legacies interwoven." As they stood among the vines, the sky burning with the fiery colors of hope, Alaric leaned in, capturing Amara's gaze with his own deep, tumultuous, almost hypnotic. The world around them faded as he brushed his lips against hers, a soft caress that spoke of promise and protection. Amara melted into the kiss, her senses igniting as the air swirled with the aroma of grapes and the sweet anticipation of what was to come. Time slipped away, losing meaning as their lips moved together in an unhurried dance, each pulse of their hearts echoing the determination to reclaim their destinies. But just as quickly as it began, the kiss drew to a close, leaving them both breathless. Alaric pulled back slightly, their foreheads resting together. "You are fierce, Amara, and far too beautiful to be forgotten," he murmured, the words reverberating in the stillness. In that moment, beneath the splendor of the setting sun, Amara felt her legacy rekindle, not just her mother's, but her own, a journey of reclamation and passion, intertwined with the promise of love right at her side. "Let's take back what's ours," she whispered, determination igniting in her voice. Scene 38, a path forged together. The light of the setting sun spilled golden hues across the vineyard, casting long shadows that danced between the vine-strewn rows. Amara Sorensen stood at the crest of the hill, the sharp scent of ripe grapes mingling with the earthy aroma of the rich soil beneath her feet. She took a deep breath, her heart racing as the warmth of the evening enveloped her. The air was thick with an electric tension, a mixture of relief from the recent turmoil and the lingering doubts that threatened to splinter her thoughts. Alaric Ughandu paced nearby, his silhouette hard against the glow of the horizon. He had been her fierce protector against the shadow of a crime syndicate, but now they stood on the precipice of something far more intimate. With a firm glance, he caught her eye, and their gazes locked, each searching for clarity. "It's quiet now," he said, his voice low and contemplative, as if the silence demanded a reverence they both felt. "Quiet, yes," Amara responded, her courage buoying as she stepped closer. "But I still hear the echoes of what just happened." Her voice wavered slightly, capturing the weight of their shared history, painful, tumultuous, yet strangely binding. "And I hear the truth you're so afraid to say." He moved closer, amplifying the unspoken tension lingering between them, his presence both commanding and disarming. Amara scoffed lightly, trying to mask her vulnerabilities with a dash of humor. "Who knew you could read minds, Alaric? Should I start calling you the Whisperer?" His lips curled into a half smile, the corner of his mouth lifting just the slightest bit, teasing the bravado from her facade. "I hear a lot more in the silences, Amara, a hint of fear, a promise of trust. You can't hide behind jesting forever." She looked away, through the lush rows of vines that seemed to mirror the barriers she had built in her heart. "Trust is hard-earned," she replied. "You know what it's like to have that trust shattered." "Trust can also be rebuilt," Alaric pointed out, his eyes never leaving hers. "But it requires both of us to forge that path." The half-light painted shadows on his chiseled features, revealing flickers of vulnerability hidden beneath his stoic exterior. He stepped closer, their breaths mingling in the warm evening air, thick with the scent of sweet fruit ripening in the fading light. "What are you so afraid of, Amara?" His question hung in the air, one soft yet potent enough to break down the walls she meticulously built. I'm afraid of losing everything again, of opening up to someone just to find it all collapse, she confessed, her voice soft but firm. Every time I get close to someone, it feels like I'm inviting disaster. Alaric's brow furrowed, an intensity igniting in his eyes. You're not the one inviting disaster. It's the shadows from the past that try to claim everything you've worked for. He reached out tentatively, his hand brushing against hers, igniting a spark that surged through her. Cautiously, she took a step closer until their bodies almost touched, her heart drumming in her chest like a wild drumbeat. You just brushed my hand, and I feel like I'm on the edge of a cliff. What happens if I tumble? You won't fall. I'll catch you, he vowed, his voice a deep murmur that wrapped around her like a promise. The air crackled with something dangerously intimate as he leaned in closer, the heat radiating between them almost palpable. What if I'm not ready? She whispered, delight tangled with fear dancing in her voice. Readiness is overrated. His lips barely touched her ear as he spoke, sending a delightful shiver coursing through her. But if you step into the unknown with me, I'll show you trust can be a foundation, not a pretense. Amara, her heart racing and doubts dissolving like the setting sun, tilted her head slightly, searching his dark gaze for assurance. And what if it gets complicated? Complexity is the beauty of life, and it's always worth embracing. He stepped back slightly, letting the tension simmer, the reality of their situation lingering like the wine they both loved. Let's take the first step together. She hesitated, the last light of day spilling behind the hills like a closing curtain. Together, then. There was strength in her words, a promise to forge a path that lay ahead, shaded but illuminated by the connection they both craved. As darkness settled over the vineyard, Amara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Alaric's protection envelop her. Together they stood, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, united against the shadows that loomed, but illuminated by a newfound light of trust. Scene 39. Sweeping changes. The autumn sun poured through the large bay windows of Amara Sorensen's vineyard estate, casting warm golden rays over the labored pine barrels lined up against the walls. The air, thick with the scent of aging wine and fresh earth, enveloped her as she wrestled with the weight of her decisions. It was time for change. The vibrant colors of the fall leaves outside mirrored the turmoil within her, a cacophony of ripe ideas, jostling for dominance amidst self-doubt and emotional wariness. Amara stood before the expansive oak table in her tasting room, surrounded by empty glasses reflecting shards of sunlight. She picked up one of the delicate crystal flutes, letting the diamond-like facets catch the light. A flicker of doubt crept in. Had she truly sabotaged her own legacy? The thought fueled her resolve. She needed to evolve, to protect everything she had built before the threats of the crime syndicate turned her dreams to dust. Just as the heaviness of silence enveloped her thoughts, Alaric Ughandu stepped through the ornate double doors, his presence electrifying the quiet. Tall and imposing, he was a grounding force against the chaos that danced in her mind. I was just thinking, Amara said, her voice firm but tinged with vulnerability. What if we took a different approach to the vineyard? More? Modern? Alaric raised an eyebrow, a hint of mischief breaking through his usually stoic facade. Modern? What are you suggesting? A rooftop party with organic cold-pressed juice shots? She chuckled softly, grateful for the tempest of personality that was Alaric. Actually, I was thinking perhaps we could incorporate a hybrid model hosting events that double as marketing. Attract a crowd, attracted both to wine and the allure of an experience. And maybe a specialized tasting tour that highlights Black-owned wineries. The corners of Alaric's lips quirked upwards. A wine tour where you set the stage as the enchanting witch of the vineyard? I can already see the spellbound patrons. Witch? She cocked her head, preparing to unleash a playful retort. You know, I wasn't going to zap you with my wand today, but your persistence might summon the urge. With an exaggerated flourish, she waved the empty flute as if reciting a spell, relishing the moment. Alaric feigned horror while suppressing a laugh, a tension breaking between them. Fine. Instead, I'll offer you my talents as a protector against any pesky intruders. I could wield a mean corkscrew. Their laughter threaded through the air, mixing with the rich aromas surrounding them. Amara felt warmth spread through her chest, grounding her amidst the uncertainty. But beneath the laughter, a flicker of their deeper connection pulsed, an electric undercurrent that had been simmering, waiting for the right moment to burst forth. As their laughter subsided, the silence stretched, charged with unspoken words. Amara's fingers brushed against the cool stem of the flute, suddenly finding it hard to breathe. She searched Alaric's eyes, deep pools of intensity that held secrets and soft rays of light alike. "You really believe we can make this vineyard thrive again?" He stepped closer, the scent of cedar and fresh mint enveloping her as he crossed the space between them. "I believe in you, Amara, more than you might know." His voice dropped, thick with sincerity, reverberating in her chest like a tremor of understanding. The air felt heavier, as if the weight of their shared histories swelled beneath the surface. Desires tangled in her mind, fought against the warrior she had forged in the light of her mother's absence. "Alaric," she began, but the sentence tangled on her tongue. Questions danced between them, hovering just out of reach. Without warning, Alaric leaned in, his breath warm against her cheek. "You don't have to say anything. Just know, whatever it takes, I will stand by you." The world around them faded into a comforting blur, and in that moment, fear fell away, replaced by an undeniable urge to cross the chasm that divided them. She stepped closer, their gazes locked, every heartbeat echoing quietly in the silence. The kiss that followed was charged with unspoken promises, a fervent connection tinged with urgency. Slowly, the world narrowed down to the warmth of their lips, the electric pull of possibility igniting the air around them. It was messy. The future loomed large but felt nearer with him by her side. Breaking the kiss, they breathed heavily under the weight of their realities. Alaric's eyes glimmered with an intensity that promised not just protection, but passion and partnership. "Change is coming, Amara," he whispered, pulling back slightly while grasping her shoulders with certainty. "Together, we can turn even the darkest challenges into thriving vines." As she lost herself in the depth of his gaze, Amara realized this was more than just a new strategy for the vineyard. It was a chance to reclaim her life in all its complicated beauty. Would fear sabotage her once more, or could it pave the way for something profound, something like love? Scene 40. Liberation from the past. The late afternoon sun poured golden light over Amara's vineyard, casting long shadows along the rows of ripened vines. The air was infused with the sweet aroma of blooming wildflowers, mingling with the earthy richness of the soil. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, whispering secrets of renewal to anyone who might listen. Amara Sorensen stood amidst it, her heart racing, as if the earth itself knew the weight of what was to come. Alaric Ughandu leaned against the weathered wooden fence at the edge of the vineyard, his presence like a bolt of lightning against the serene backdrop. The sunlight danced on his skin, revealing the contours that drew her gaze like gravity. She could see the flicker of mischief in his dark eyes, but something deeper lurked within them, an echo of pain that mirrored her own. "You're staring again," he teased, a half smirk playing on his lips. "Can you blame me?" Amara quipped back, crossing her arms as if it might shield her from the intensity of his gaze. "This vineyard is my life's work, and you're like a storm cloud over it." "Charming, but a storm can sometimes bring unexpected growth," Alaric countered, stepping closer, his strong presence radiating confidence. Amara's heart fluttered. "The last storm nearly washed me away," she admitted, allowing her defenses to drop one fraction at a time. "I'm just trying to figure out where to go from here." Alaric paused, studying her with a gravity that made her nervous. "You keep trying to carry every burden alone. You don't have to, not anymore." A rich silence enveloped them, the quiet only punctuated by the distant chirping of birds, seemingly cheering on their exchange. Amara took a breath, her chest tightening with vulnerability. "What if I don't know how to not be burdened? My past is like a shadow I can't outrun." "Then maybe it's time to dance with that shadow," Alaric replied softly, stepping closer, encapsulating her in his warmth. "Let it teach you rather than haunt you." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Amara held his gaze, searching for the playful spark he often carried, but now felt like a doorway to something deeper. "And what if I fear what dancing with it looks like? Then allow me to lead." Alaric said, his voice low and intense. Trust me, just this once. Amara's pulse quickened as she felt the implications of his offer blossom between them. She took a small step forward, allowing the unpredictable currents of emotion to swirl around her. Can I trust you to be there? When the dance gets messy? His eyes darkened, filled with a sincerity that made her breath hitch. I promise to catch you if you fall. With an innocent flick of her hair, Amara scoffed lightly. And you know I'll likely fall? Life is a series of falls, Amara. Alaric took her hands, his grip warm and reassuring. But find the right partner, and every fall can shift into something spectacular. Good, because I'm very good at falling, she replied, a playful challenge in her voice. Yet as she stepped closer, the weight of her past crashed against her like waves, threatening to pull her under. Alaric brought their hands to his chest, holding her gaze with an intensity that undid her resolve. Then let's make sure we're not falling alone. Challenging him was pointless. The warmth of his body and the soft scent of cedarwood enveloped her senses. With each passing moment, the space between them felt like an invisible tether, connecting their scars, unveiling deeper truths. She needed to push past the reluctance burying her heart. Show me how, Amara whispered, the trust seeping into her voice. Show me how to dance. With a smirk flickering back to life, Alaric tugged her closer, their foreheads nearly touching now. Just remember, when you feel lost, I'll be here. You're stronger than you think. And in that moment, as the shadows of their pasts loomed ominously yet tenderly together, Amara finally felt something shift within her, an ember of hope igniting in the dark. You and me? Always, he replied, offering nothing but a promise, a lifeline that she instinctively knew she could grasp. Amara smiled, the lingering tension between them melting into something beautifully profound, a sense of liberation, not just from her past, but into a new beginning. Scene 41, Rebuilding Trust. The sun hung low over the vineyard, casting long shadows that danced across the rows of grapevines swaying gently in the evening breeze. Amara stood at the edge of the sprawling estate, her heels sinking softly into the cool earth, the air rich with the sweetness of ripening grapes. She could hear the rustle of the leaves and the distant clink of glasses from the rustic barn that served as the setting for their fledgling truce. The intoxicating aroma of fresh lavender drifted around her, mingling with her unease. You look deep in thought. Alaric's voice was like warm honey, wrapping around her as he approached with a relaxed confidence that made her heart race. He leaned against the wooden railing of the small porch, sunlight glinting off his dark skin as he smiled, a knowing glimmer in his eye. Just reflecting on my life choices, Amara replied, forcing a chuckle as she turned to face him, the corners of her mouth betraying an uncharacteristic hesitation, and wondering if I should add trusting a brooding stranger to that list. His laughter was rich and magnetic, a sound that pulled her in rather than pushing her away. I'd advise against it unless he happens to be exceptionally handsome. He flashed a mischievous grin, the atmosphere around them thickening with playful tension. Amara rolled her eyes, her tension laced with amusement. So you're saying you consider yourself exceptionally handsome? Only when I wear this shirt, he said, gesturing to a fitted linen shirt that seemed to capture the light perfectly, giving his silhouette a striking allure. But really, Amara, maybe it's time we drop the pretense. You're not the only one with a tangled bunch of secrets. The moment hung between them, electric. Amara took a step closer, searching his dark eyes, where shadows of vulnerability flickered like candlelight. What do you mean? Alaric inhaled deeply, tension rippling just beneath the surface of his calm demeanor. That night, when things went sideways, I shouldn't have been there. I could have. He paused, the weight of his confession pressing against the air like a storm cloud. But I didn't do anything. I froze. She searched his expression. There was a tempest of regret swirling in those depths. You couldn't have known. Couldn't have known? Amara, I was right there. He cut himself off, running a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Do you think I can just brush it off? No, that's not what I meant, she said quickly, her voice steadier than she felt. We can't change our past, Alaric, but sharing it can start the healing. He took a breath, and in that moment, Amara crossed the threshold into silent territory, her heart racing. What if I told you that since that night, I've felt like I was running on borrowed time, like I'm waiting for someone to pull the carpet out from under me again? His eyes softened. I understand that fear, he admitted, stepping closer, closing the distance between them. But maybe the risk is worth it. We can figure this out together. With their emotions laid bare, the world around them faded, a hushed reverence echoing through the air. Amara felt her heart pounding in her chest, trapped in this charged moment under the remnants of daylight. She took a trembling breath, the tension weaving around them like a thread binding their fates. Amara raised her gaze, and their eyes locked, the palpable chemistry illuminated by the low sun. Then, let's take a risk. With that, Alaric stepped forward, the warmth radiating from his body enveloping her like a cherished embrace. He hesitated for only a heartbeat, then lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a melding of insecurities and hopes, but it ignited fiercely, drawing them into a space where trust mingled with desire. She savored the sensation. His kiss was a balm, soothing yet electric, urging her to move closer, as if the world outside ceased to exist. Amara melted against him, her hands finding their place on his shoulders, feeling the strength there, the promise of protection.